All right, folks. Welcome back. We are entering the 8th week. It is reset day again. Monday. Business as usual. Neverwinter modules has a refresher after week 4 and sometimes like week 5, maybe. Um, week 6, sorry. The milestones are more or less the same. It opens up your currency rotations, right? Things that you can keep on doing to hoard currency from a week to week basis, and maybe like some accessibility stuff like retroactive currency related things or boon points at this point. So we're gonna head on in. uh Basically, these days, everything past week 4 is something I would routinely do with also completing the weekly haul. This is a chill state, we're in a chill state. I do this as a mental exercise. It's like breathing and going for a run. Earlier today we did it a little bit different. We had a session that of 2025 project that I started, and more or less it's gonna bleed into this. Lots of my comments and my stories. I brought a few more stories. It deals with like consuming content on the internet. More on that later if I find the opportunity. Right, so we're gonna hop in. We're gonna do our weeklies. Maybe catch a dungeon run. We are a little bit late, so by I think this is our every other week, so I think we are gonna have our activities filled. So let's get to it. Let's see. We did do one. I don't actually know if we needed to turn that one in. That's 5. 5, we get 80 from this guy, right? So these are the 4. We get 80. So we're at 85. Oh, I don't think we needed to turn that in actually. That's fine. Because our activity. Let's look at our activity. Our activity. What is it at? It's hijinks, right? It's at 50%. Oh yeah, we didn't need to turn that in. That's okay. It's all good. All right, so we're gonna head. Whoops. The hollows first, right? Good old chill stream. I'm very hype. Usually, it's the start of the day. It's a little different. We have 2 weeks left, right? Week 9 and week 10, it'll mark the conclusion of. So what is this called? So above, thus then below, or man, you would think I know by now. It's as above, so below. Good old English. Yeah. I'll chill for a little moment. We'll go through our routine here before I might meander on my short story or my anecdotal story. Something I brought. That's typically what I do most of the time. I don't know how other people go about enjoying their live service games, or for example, uh this sounds crazily different. Generally speaking, when I think of activity that I can do, right, while also having the flexibility of looking at something, accumulating something, you could envision someone getting a beer, turning on an episode of The Office. This is effectively what I do instead, right? In moderation. These are special occasions, right? Once a week because of the new module. They're a little bit longer. However, usually I would hop on 15-minute random trial queue, and then maybe 20 to 30-minute dungeon queue, and your logins and stuff, and we wait for the next module, more or less. It's been quite a healthy relationship with this game, if you will, right, in moderation. And I get to share some of my thoughts while I'm doing this, or at least share some of the thoughts with myself and or others who are interested. Usually it kinda is tangentially related to what's going on, what I'm doing nowadays. I as a personal history, that's what World of Warcraft, like MMOs, meant to me. I was part of the OG gang, you know, in the infancy of these type of games. They were platforms for communication and hangout. So I still remember fondly the times when oh, what am I gonna do when I get home or get to the dorm with from class? I think, oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna hop on World of Warcraft, and then while we're grinding out, quote unquote, grinding out, basically drinking our cup of coffee or our Coke. It's kind of unfortunate that that type of analogy, it doesn't age very well because, you know, chronic consumption of energy drinks and whatnot. However, you know, the idea is that I hop on, we grind out some stuff, but we're really chatting with each other, right? We're really chatting with each other. And that is something that's nostalgic about these things. I don't have any friends like that anymore, per se. We find time to chat with each other. However, not in the video game sense. They're professional people who don't necessarily have time to invest in the manner or pass time in a manner that is similar to me. However, they're still my best friends, and I would trust them with pretty much anything in the world. And that's another, I always wanted to play World of Warcraft when you were young, but I couldn't do the monthly fee, or rather my parents didn't want to. Yeah, I did the World of Warcraft. I was in college already, Valentine. And it was actually well, sort of a friend, not a friend anymore. However, someone said like, oh yeah, they met the significant other on World of Warcraft and stuff like that, and then little turn into, hey, let's play World of Warcraft. It's kind of like the Roblox of today, right? If you're really this is the topical relevance, the generational gap. If you're a little bit younger than me, not that much, and you're hopping on Minecraft just to hang out with friends, and then if you're much younger than those people and you're hopping on Roblox and you're hanging out with friends, that's very similar. However, there is a difference in communication. So generationally, why does that sound so generationally? Generationally? Oh, generationally, right? People use it in order to, oh, dang it. People use it in that way, in my opinion. And the context and that environment is no longer similar, right? The way the conversation happens, they share different things. And I haven't been attached to Roblox or Minecraft or whatnot, so it is something that I ask with other people, like younger people when they talk about Roblox and stuff, and I genuinely like to ask them like, hey, what do you do in Roblox nowadays? What do you talk about? And as a personal anecdote, in World of Warcraft, we actually talk about business, the weather, our career, bills, insurance, living alone. Like they're, you know, like family stuff. So that's kind of a generational idiosyncrasy difference. But the function of a platform and video games, especially multiplayer games like this, where you sit around, you chill and meander, as opposed to your competitive multiplayer games. That's why I play these games. Right? It's actually hilarious you say that, because I did play Roblox, and you did meet your ex SO there. So she lived over 1,000 miles away in Sakachu. Oh wait, how do you pronounce that? It's a Native American name. I don't know. You did meet several times, I see. And I haven't logged into it for maybe 3 or 4 years now, but your Roblox account is now older than a lot of players on it. Yeah, 2008. Yeah, exactly. I have no Saskatchewan. I'm like pronouncing it in an American pronunciation, but I have no idea how to pronounce those type of names. You can give me the English stuff. It's basically Canadian Nebraska. Yeah. I live in a, we already talked about it. I live in a state where you have to say things like name Native American features and whatnot, so I can totally understand. Yesterday we were talking about appellation, right? How the regional differences in how to say appellation, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. English. It's so you played Roblox. You were part of the Roblox generation, huh? Or you were able to overlap with the Roblox generation. I did get into Roblox. I did actually touched Roblox. I also did Minecraft. Like literally I have done it. Although it was because someone else was very enthusiastic. However, they didn't remain enthusiastic, so it fell by the wayside. Like most things, my passion tends to reflect the person who initially brought me onto it. So if I'm no longer acquainted with them, they become stories that I use in order to reach someone who has experience with it. But no more than that, of course. Roblox today is so far removed from what it once was, I was hardly recognize it. I know that sounds sort of weird given it's a platform, right? It's not the Roblox itself, it's a game. Yeah. The generational shifts, right? World of Warcraft is not that anymore as well. And without saying too much, it's kind of very startling in a sense that you still know who the Warcraft OGs are, because they also represent the first wave of live streamers and YouTube content creators, right? And you can see them, they go back for the nostalgia. However, it's a new generation occupies World of Warcraft, right? Outside that vastly outnumbers the representation of what it was before as a platform. And that's change, cultural change, generational change. It's humbling in a weird way, and at the same time we still have our memories and our platforms of today. So what are my platforms of today? Neverwinter is sufficient for now. What was my platform of today? A language learning app. See what I did there, Valentine? So, we meander to different types of platforms in order to adjust, right? Evolve and change, if you will. And maybe not for our preferences, but certainly for other preferences. The games are made by the users, hence it's being being a platform to you, but it really did evolve and change so much that it's unrecognizable. Yeah. You might not view World of Warcraft as a platform, but games themselves are created within World of Warcraft. And those games are not games that are using the game structure, but the emergent property of the players, right? For example, what made Warcraft addictive is not necessarily the design of Warcraft itself, but the users who made it into an addictive property. The internal competition between first clearing a boss is a game that was made using World of Warcraft's platform. That led to the celebration and competition design that came after. Many of the emergent properties of MMOs exist now because the games were created by the users who used a platform, in my opinion. It spawned from that. I mean, cue Dota. You know? Then Riot Games, then the rest is history, right? So the interaction of people collectively creates, it changes something that was once a game into a platform because that platform enables enough emergent properties. And I love language learning apps because of that too. However, there's a lot of friction nowadays. You know, the idea of being constrained by a product is the end all be all thing, right? If the product doesn't do it, then you're not responsible in being emergent on it. And we recently talked about Wanikani today, about how, like, if you focus specifically on what Wanikani's design is meant to do and evaluate everything on meant to do, then it can only have that value to you. What Wanikani represents to me is something a little bit more than that, and that might not be relatable, right? It represents the aspirations of two people, and those two people, I can kind of see it through their lenses. And then it itself can be a platform that I could use. I'm basically doing that now. This is my my social experiment, if you will. Live streaming is a platform. However, the things I use also becomes platforms in creating emergent properties. So what are the emergent properties? The conversations that you and I have, it are emergent properties. That used to be something that World of Warcraft served as a platform. When we're clearing dungeons, all of us are applying skills, interestingly enough, from our professional backgrounds, and then we talk about our professional backgrounds while we're using the content. It still kind of happens here in Neverwinter, only people talk about politics and religion and stuff, which it's a morally gray area, right? And appropriateness and whatnot. But you can see a lot of the reminiscences of what social media and other platforms have standardized now. However, in these hubs, like in these particular games and potentially other games that harken back to the days of old, the topics are different, right? People age, groups meander and drift. Great. I mean, it's great and not great. You know, it's a bittersweet moment. What I see of World of Warcraft when people play World of Warcraft is either you bring your old group back with you, or it's no longer the Warcraft of yesteryear. And I watched that. I watched that with a charming distance, you know, at arm's length, right? Because if I go back, yeah, I could embrace it for sure. I could try to embrace the new culture that is World of Warcraft, or I could humbly see that Warcraft is now a game still for young people, right? It has a target audience, target demographic, and many of the changes and the things in the higher up is designed to target the new younger audience. And then you start thinking to yourself, man, but that just means I'm really old and pepped. It's like, yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? And then now you move on to games like a live service game that you have to be like an old, perhaps an older person to want to even be interested in something like this. It doesn't have the bells and whistles of your endless content barrage and hyper stimulated graphics design and etc, right? And I see the charm in it. It's not for everyone. I certainly use this as time to talk about things like this. Your best friend from high school who now a doctor of pharmacy. Back then I remember he played WoW, and even today I'll occasionally see him log into on Discord, though not regularly. I haven't logged into. Oh wait, I lied. I did log into World of Warcraft once. And I'm gonna call out that goober, actually. No, not by name, but there might have been a chance you might have seen him. There was a time, I think it was 2 years ago, World of Warcraft had a free trial, right? I think it's like for the first 15 levels, and it might be 4 years ago. It was the World of Warcraft Classic launch like attempt to, and the reason why I did it was because it was related to Hearthstone. It was a Hearthstone promo, I think. And even Hero of the Storm. That was also the time that I played Hero of the Storm for the first time, right? And it was a Hearthstone collab thing across their IPs. And I did log in and leveled up to 15, and I did see a lot of interesting things with the current World of Warcraft. This was World of Warcraft stable, I'm pretty sure. It wasn't like to bring people. Oh, it might have been Cataclysm. I don't know. It was one of them, and it was recent. That was the last time I've done it, and it's because someone mentioned it. A goober mentioned it. And now a person that I still know now. I did play a little bit again. I played a warrior. Oh, no wait, I lied. I played no, it was a monk. It was a Pandarian monk. I had to. I mean I didn't play since what was it? Since the second expansion, Burning Crusade. Like I didn't even get to the Lich King before I retired from World of Warcraft. Lots of hours. I was going into my junior year in high school. I mean, in college, so time was a factor. But I most definitely played a Pandarian monk. It's really kind of interesting to me the dedication he and other really had for the world, lore, and universe as a whole. There were so many advertisements for that. I do remember. Yeah, I was. Oh boy. Sleep was a luxury. I'm telling you. Sleep was a luxury. I used to remember the entire lore of the first 3 Warcraft games that led into all the contextualization of World of Warcraft for the first like 4 expansions. Now I don't remember a lot of it. Maybe like the Medivh tale. Obviously the iconic Arthas tale. Where like and then like the idea of the Lich King, how Kalthazad fits into Arthas' thing, but after, and then how Sylvanas gets involved and Illidan's legacy, right? The Dark Portal, where it led to the introduction of the orcs from I forgot what it's called. do they call it the Outworld? I think they call it Outworld, or the other world where the orcs were a large majority of the orcs were from, things like that. And then how the tale of Thrall, and because the orcs retreated sort of, or like it's a really complicated story, but it's a really great story. It's a shame the movie didn't spawn into more of that. That buddy mentioned this bus of Sylvanas Windrunner in his house. Oh, okay. Maybe I wasn't. I was that loaded on material uh expenses. Oh, I was supposed to reset these guys. Okay, a bus, if you will. I remember when Arthas's legacy was introduced and stuff. There was a lot of like Frostmournes. People had a bunch of Frostmournes everywhere. It's like, here's my Frostmourne. It's like, that's my collector's edition Frostmourne. Frostmourne is the blade that you. I I don't know how much you know about World of Warcraft. I'm not that knowledgeable about Warcraft, but I do have enough residual topical stuff about hobbyists and their relationship with like Warcraft collectibles and whatnot. And Frostmourne was, yeah, that's a hot item. The Lich King's sword, Arthas's sword, Frostmourne. Can't tell you how many dioramas, I don't know what you call them, like reconstructions and scale models of Ironforge that I watched. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great scale model of Ironforge. I was personally a thrall. I was very, very into Thrall's plight, because he's like the underdog kind of thing. And then the frustration of Malfurion trying to do, how you say, do the right thing, but at the same time did not have enough information about the motivations of Illidan, and their night elves involvement. Or how I watched this essay way back in the day a couple of times about the creation of Azeroth, like how Azeroth came into being, right? Like, who are the ancient ones, when they were, this was around the time when the Draenei or Draenei was introduced, and how their relationship with the Naga, right? And then how that related to the Titans and the ancient ones and the dragons that created the plane Azeroth that they occupy now. You got to introduce like Norse Dormu, Alexstrasza, like Ysera, and all of them. Like, it's so neat. Like the OG elves, when Mana Thirst happened, and then they tried to explain like the Blood Elves, like how it ended up creating like two separations, where the Blood Elves, and Night Elves and whatnot. So neat. It parallels a lot of already existing human history. So it's not like it goes without a complete lack of empathy. It's a pure fantasy is fantasy. Human beings still write the fantasy. So you can glean a lot of things that run parallel. Often Tolkien fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons tend to have all of these things. I joke around a lot about Neverwinter, right? When you write Neverwinter, I try to interact with them. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. We slaughter and uproot and do all that stuff in the name of expansion, right? That kind of thing. I think there's a lot to be gleaned in interest. I think lots of the themes that I talk about when we're talking about cultures and whatnot and psychology and whatnot. I spend most of the time when I play games like this, anything really, I keep all those things close to my heart, largely because they're very important. So the skills continue to build regardless of the context of the activity that I'm involved in. I frame it around pretty much my interest continuously, which I was trying to illustrate when we were talking about Wanikani and stuff. Huh? Oh, okay. Hello there, Jiao. Konnichiwa. I drew a key tree today. How goes it? What are you up to right now, Jiao? A key tree. And I met another Japanese language learner. I should have been. I was kind of digressing, so I didn't have the opportunity to ask that person how they're going about learning their Japanese at the time. Outside of discovering that they started writing kanji, which I'm so excited. I'm curious how they're going about doing that as well. I didn't quite have enough time. I was trying to not overexert myself. Tomorrow is a special day, so we're introducing something tomorrow as well. The second project, I better make sure I don't overcommit to a lot of things. This one is gonna be a natural companion for Wanikani, so if I'm doing Wanikani, I would have to do it too. It's very difficult not to have a moderation for that. And it's getting close. Like a Dragon is around the corner, and I have yet to do my reviews for Duolingo Japanese and Chinese. Okay. And I didn't do the Like a Dragon 8 Chinese playthrough yet, or the Japanese Victory Lap before. I have till the 20th, so right now we're looking at a little over a month. Beginning of the year starts strong, you know? And then it kind of like dips down a little in the middle of the year, and then we finish strong. That's how I do be doing it. So I need to increase this activity level. Let's do the heroic encounters to set up for next week. Heroic encounters are the quickest way to fill the activity bar. Or we can do 4 repeatables. Let's just do 3 repeatables actually. That's actually quicker. Wait, there's a repeatable here. What was this repeatable? We'll just I think we only need to do 2 repeatables, so that's fine. Yeah, let's do it that way. 2 repeatables. I saw you also do a lot of projects, drawing, fitness, video, etc. Yeah, I have a lot of time. Now that this was it yesterday that I mentioned that if you resonate with being high functioning, it's very difficult to stand still. Special interest projects are a way to keep myself intellectually healthy when opportunity presents themselves. So we do as much as possible to keep ourselves involved in our life, right? If you start losing interest in your own life and your own routines and whatnot, it can be very, very difficult for maybe like someone myself to find ways to encourage that person, like, this is your life, get excited about it. So my projects range from crunching 1 month to doing something for the rest of my life. So the idea is the projects are not in escalation of a very specific archetype. If you escalate, one must find balance, right? Say like if you do a subathon or something for a week, and next month you're like, let's do it again, and do it for 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, then a month, then it becomes 2 years straight. At some point, it's gonna have an escalation problem, right? And the thing about human behavior is understanding the human condition helps you moderate that. So for me, I have usually throughout the year, I have a balance between things that I do the best all wound up into like 1 month or 1 day, even a weekend, like Otakan. And then we have our progressions and stuff. So when I'm not working, I'm working on myself. That's work too, right? If you're not working now, you can choose to work on yourself. And that, in a way, will be your plan B, right? And I already answered this question a couple of times already. I don't work professionally right now. And then one of the obvious questions, like, so what, how do you support yourself? And my answer to that is I have quite a long life of budgeting and being frugal and knowing how long I can do something financially. So because I know how to do that, I know how long I can do this for how long, and then choose when I can go grab a job, right? Or turn something into a professional portfolio for something else. So if I am not working, I'm actively working on myself. And the pride of that is that when I go to get a job, it's not like I'm expecting I'm the expert of something. The idea is that job is there to support my life's pursuit, which is to be happy, encourage other people to be happy, and learn how like being privileged comes with its wonders, and being exceptional also does come with its wonders. However, sometimes there's a lot of that, and perhaps not as much of saying, like yesterday I was trying to ask my father, like, why did he wake up so early, right? And those are the little things, right? Asking, being concerned about others, that kind of thing, or your loved ones. That's the thing that there's a chance you could lose sight of it, and I try not to do that anymore. While I was potentially on a course to doing lots of things like becoming a specialist or something like that, I also lost sight of my own health. And that's not because it was a bad thing. I was so enamored by science and everything that I kind of just lost the human touch side on occasion for myself. And these are the type of things that I talk about most of the time. Because you don't have to be 40 years old to lose sight of yourself. You can lose sight of yourself being addicted to a video game. Right? You can lose sight of your own progress, your own education, maybe even fall into it's all about the numbers kind of thing. Humans are humans. And I think having someone who is able to normalize your being well aware, either you or someone around you, that balance out the understanding of your own nature, can provide some well balanced, healthy lifestyles. That's also what you should do. What do you plan on doing? Any ideas? Anything you're interested in? Valentine is practically changing the world as we speak. Valentine was very candid about sharing their life's journey right now. It's very heartwarming to hear someone who's like just actively knocking it out of the park. In like a self-improvement way. Okay, we're going to Lighthouse. Let's go. I imagine you're continuing to truck along with your paper at the moment. hear, hear me out here. What does a newly like residents of the United States go for when it comes to food? You love design products and maybe coding. Well, that certainly is nice to hear that your interest lines up with being a CS major or a CS, graduate student. But you can't urge yourself to do them. Oh, okay. Yeah, that can be a thing. Yeah. Have you ever done things in Japanese? Like what I mean is like you go around, it's like, oh, all right, today we're gonna learn a few words about these things in Japanese. Like, one or two on the sides, like, this is something very unique to me. And then one day you're just gonna constantly pigeonhole, like, hey guys, do you want to know a cool word in Japanese? And then you just break out your coding Japanese words. That's kind of what I do with science. Like, have you known, other avenues to interact with, embellish all the things together, design a product that deals with coding? That kind of sounds like a talk. You probably have done a lot of that type of brainstorming. I'm spitballing again. This is whenever someone shares with me something and they share a bit of evidence of maybe diminishing enthusiasm, I, as an ignorant person, right, someone who's incompetent but have all the innocence of trying to say something weird, oftentimes if you have someone who's like enthusiastic but have no idea what they're talking about, one could come up with like, oh yeah, that's a pretty, I could do something like that kind of thing. Sometimes an outside perspective can be a silver lining or like a blessing in disguise kind of thing. Coding. What could you product design on the side? In terms of like, here's an example from my perspective. If my interests dealt with design, products, and coding, my first thought was, how many free trial type of coding projects out there that I can test while also learning Japanese? Right? Because you did mention that you're also learning Japanese. I'm trying to remember all the details that you shared with me about yourself while integrating examples of things that I'm familiar with so that I can remember all your details, right? Yeah. I'm not very, I don't know a lot about coding. Python is like, that's where it stops largely. And then there's some like loose practical applications of either very specific cases or very generic cases. Sufficiency is the word. If it was sufficient to do my task, that's about as much coding as I have these days. And when it comes to design, product, or integration of language learning, there's no shortage of design or upcoming people. In fact, I'm setting myself up for tomorrow's introduction of the companion project because it's related to Wanikani. And they ended up, they're like, yo, you know what? We're gonna make a product. We're gonna design it. We're gonna invest a couple years into it, and voila. I am an investor. Or not necessarily an investor in that way, but I believe in their passion, so take my money. if you will. How the heck do I get over? Where am I at on the heroic encounters? 60%. Yeah, I had many thoughts, but afraid of taking action. That's understandable. Even though I really feel comfortable when you're doing it. Yeah. I know this might sound a little bit cliche. There are quite a lot of wonderful content creators out there that may give you like that pep in your step, but it goes without saying that one of the biggest human conditions that must be overcome is, especially when it comes to a project-oriented person, is normalizing a routine that allows you to start something and then know that you can secure the product or secure the emotional legacy quickly in order to feel comfortable to start again, right? That's really tough. And I don't think you're alone. I beg to differ. You're probably the statistical norm, because specializing something, practice skills that keep you focused on something. Starting new things or being comfortable with starting new things and finding value in consistently starting new things and then stopping and then integrating into new things, that is a different discipline in terms of like emotional coping strategies and or like trying to get a bigger picture. That's a holistic approach. And oftentimes when someone becomes very specialized, like in genetic, like for example, one of the bigger obstacles during my later scientific career was that I needed to get interested in other things related to my discipline. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to start because while you're seemingly probably comfortable with the underlying foundations, it's still starting something new. Like, I needed to understand like structural biology. Spoiler, it didn't quite happen. Like, I kind of dabbled in it. Sometimes I like sat in a seminar for like physical, like structural biology, and I'm like, so it's very understandable, especially the more specialized you become. And what is one specialization that occurs without you even trying? Eating, right? Sleeping, walking. So in order to paint a more vivid or relatable picture, we can dispense even the specialized things like, oh, but not all of us are coders, not all of us have PhDs and whatnot, right? The things that you fundamentally do nearly to the point of non-attention, like things that you do without even paying attention to it anymore, those things, imagine starting something new associate with those things. So yeah, what do you benefit, like as a human, like understanding like emotional awareness of your own motivations? What do you benefit from starting a fitness routine? Oftentimes people will say, well, you get stronger, all the objective stuff. You get stronger, you're healthier, it's good for your health. Yes. However, it also tells me that you're able to start something that inherently is probably one of the most difficult things to start again. Because if there's anything more specialized when it comes to fitness, is most of the actions you're starting with deals with things you are inherently not even processing how good you are at doing, like walking. Imagine the coordination involved in walking. Have you ever described to someone how to walk? Like, for example, someone had an injury, a leg injury. How do you rehabilitate someone to go to walk again? Right, to work on walking. It can be very difficult unless your specialty is like physical therapy or something, right? So starting again Starting something new, absolutely. Absolutely. Obviously I have no idea what that looks like. Or man, that person stopped calling. Hold up. I need to find another instance. Yeah. Just use your legs, bro. I can't tell you how often I heard something exceptionally alarming. I'm not gonna like throw any more negative things, but it's a little bit alarming when in the background when you're in a gym, right? You hear so many personal trainers like, just push harder. I'm like, oh boy. I mean, it works. It works. Okay? The emotional impact, it works. My thought is like, I hope that person has enough motivation for themselves too, because sometimes if you're a personal trainer or you have the privilege. For example, if someone approached me and they say, I want to start this, can we do it together? My first thought was, we're not only going to start this, we are going to make this work, right? Because you're being entrusted, and depending on the task, if it's something fundamental and something that you know they probably know a lot about, that person is trusting you with something that's probably the hardest thing to do. And my thought was, bring it on. Let's do this, because I'm up for that challenge, right? Not that I'm saying I'm going to be successful. The idea is it's going to be a learning process between me and that person, right? When you tell someone, here's a really dark example, but also really trying to project my enthusiasm. When someone say they are depressed and they ask me, how do you stop being depressed? Because being depressed is something that is inherently chronic and intuitive. So the first thing you have to think about is, well, how do we get a person to express all the things, right? That's kind of the idea. And those are the things. And it's not too far from someone asking, like, where do I start learning a language, right? Because if you think about it, if there's anything kind of remotely at the intersection of voluntary intellectual pursuits, so it's not necessary, so there's nothing obligating you to do so. That's one of the biggest motivators, obligation. Like if you move to a country and you have to use the language, that is inherent obligation. That's like getting a job, eating, sleeping. It becomes a form of obligation. However, when someone voluntarily chooses, I want to learn Japanese, but where do I start? That is why it takes me like 3 or 4 hours to formulate something, and in the end, I'm not able to give a big, like an exact answer, but more like enabling the person to hopefully find the mindset that they can do to overcome their human condition, which is to start with a motivation that is weaker, hundreds of times weaker than eating because you're hungry or sleeping because you're tired, right? If there's anything that's really close, though, if there's anything that's close and it's voluntary, it's probably trying to replace your primary language, right? What is something that you have to use every single day in both thought, writing, and professionally? Your primary language. So that's my way of demonstrating the prioritization of what are the things that could get you to consistently learn a language versus, is it the technique? Is it the way it's presented? Is it the rate in which you learn technique? Debatably, I would argue that it starts at the person's mindset on how they see that starting something new to replace something that they're so exceptional at. How do you get to that point? Well, ask them how they're interacting with their language now. What do you use English for? Right? What do you use your primary language for? What do you use Chinese for? Right? When you read a book in Chinese, what do you think about? Now, ask yourself, can you take small steps to doing that with your target language? How would you go about it? If you didn't know what the word that you have now and you needed to figure out how to learn what that word is using your primary language, what are the chances that you could do that with your target language? That's kind of the idea of associating established habit formation with a new habit, where the habit is a contextual shift, right? Like junk food, like for example, if someone eats junk food, what is it about junk food that makes you really, really like junk food? Is there any way you can have that to capture that similar feeling, both mentally, like literally or figuratively, while also engaging in consuming a different type of food, right? And I think that's probably where I would lean towards when it comes to, okay, so I asked, I know that's I'm basically removing the cat out of the bag now. I asked you about what you're interested in or like what you like to do, because to me, since I don't know enough about you and your background, usually you take something that already works, that doesn't require an urge, and try to develop some sort of motivation from your inherent urge already. When you love to do something like a class or a game, that urge already happens. It's automated, right? There's something about it that when you hop on a game, it's effortless. Meanwhile, starting something new, like a new game, for example, is not effortless. So associating something that you already done and try to bridge it is my interpretation of overcoming language learning barriers. Yes, a lot of people are going to get upset, and the hot take is like, well, no, the fastest way and the most appropriate and objective way is to forget you know a primary language and then learn the target language by literally uprooting your entire identity and doing that. It's like, yeah, you can definitely get there quick, but I'm okay. As someone who's only capable of really speaking one language, it's sort of interesting to think about. The goal is to one day really learn enough Japanese to learn more Japanese. Yeah, right. Yeah. And well, not the whole goal, but part of the goal, right? Yes. And here's one on top of that. One day you will be able to choose between whenever you want to learn something using both your languages. They will, in my opinion, right? Not only is it that if you decide, oh, I can learn it in Japanese, might as well do it. It's like, oh wait, I can't learn it in Japanese. I'll use English, right? The idea is now you have two tools. It is part of you. It's your tool set. You know, your overall efficiency and consistency goes up in discovery because you have brought your entire game to the task at hand. Your habits that already work, your new habits that you've established, they both exist. And those things will be far more consistent than relying on one of your habits only. So building a new you, better eating habits, better sleeping habits, you view it in a sense of all your skills are all of it, right? How do you leverage all that? Now, it's not always possible. I totally agree. And there's pragmatic restrictions and whatnot. The idea is you're being greedy. You're doing more, right? Doing more, not less, not subtracting, or trying not to be subtractive anyways. And that's what I mean by creative a lot of times. When someone I know a lot of times when I say, oh, be creative, they're talking about creating something in a very specific way. You don't have to be creative in that way to be creative. It's so, I know I don't have a very elegant way of saying this. Reinventing. Walking might seem like an act of futility, as in, oh, it's a waste of time. You already walk really well. It's like, yes, true. Is that walking not engaging you anymore to give you a healthy lifestyle? Well, then you have to recreate it. And it's not the literal walking that is novel. Is engaging in creatively trying to be involved in your walking again is the exercise of starting something new. When you start something new, it could be reinventing something old. And what more greater and consistent way of doing it is something you already know super well. Now, you're probably not going to gain or redefine walking. What you're doing, in my opinion, is normalizing all the steps in trying something new. That's something people don't do very often anymore. I mean, YouTube and Twitch practically tells you to stick to things you already know most of the time, right? So start with something small, like, hey, today I'm gonna go to the grocery store and I'm gonna eat a different type of apple. I'm gonna write about it. I'm gonna think about it. And you know what? After a month, you might be saying, nah, okay, my apple, we're just gonna go back to my apple. That's perfectly fine, right? However, you did something new. You engaged in it actively for 30 days. If you can do that, why not try a banana? Heck, why not try it for 2 months? Right? The act of doing it is pretty great because humans are so excellent at quickly normalizing things that they are starting. And when you start things fairly frequently, that isn't like a 6-year project or your entire career, it might help be like, oh yeah, you know, I have some perspective now. Let's, heck, I change my fitness routine every month. What's doing a project and testing it out for a month be like? It's like, I got this. And that's a balance. Obviously, it's a balance. I think for the most part, individuals who may find it very hard or find the motivation to start new things, it's not a bad thing. It means you're hyper focused and committed to very specific things. And it's been a while. It's been a while since you decided I want to try something new, right? And since you haven't done it for a while, usually there's no reason for you to invest in thinking about how that starting new thing could lead to something. And that's understandable. Your time is spent on things that are important to you. And it can be wonderful and sustainable provided you don't end up eventually being challenged like, hey, you got to start something new. It's like, oh, well, yeah, it's been a while since I've done it. And it's time. Start small. Start with things you already know. Right? Anyway, at least that's my intention. By it. Like, someone asked me one time, like, so you played this game for a very long time. What happens if it become less interesting, right? Like, what happens if it's... So they gave me a conditional. Like, just say hypothetically, I become disinterested. And I'm like, I stop. And I wanted to say that with a serious tone because I stop when it becomes disinterested. Know why? I could find something more interesting. Like, and usually the actual reality is someone gets me more interested in the thing that I'm already interested in. So what happens is I turn the thing that I'm already interested in with them. Play it with new way. Yes, exactly. Play it with new way. And what's the best part about interacting with other people? Those people could introduce some new ways. And I collect the story. Yeah, Dao. I would love to hear about it, by the way. There's something you're going to do something, like what that is. I think being able to express that to someone else, especially someone that I feel I like to say I at least give a little bit semblance of empathy or whatnot, that can go a long way to reinforcing something, right? I'm not your personal trainer. I'm not your like professional therapist or anything like that. I'm saying sometimes the best gift that I think I can give and most humans can give is an acknowledgement that the thing you're doing is interesting to them, or a form of encouragement, 加油, ganbaro, right? At least minimally that. It's more than zero. It sounds so sappy. Sorry. Now I'm gonna turn off the waterworks. I mean, wait. I was gonna make a joke. I was like, just suck it up, kid, and do work. I don't know. I'm not very good with how to sound tough. Yeah. This is I don't have to say this. This is pretty normal. For anyone who's not familiar, I do this during the later stages of Neverwinter. I actually have a pet peeve right now that I'm negotiating. Hang on. Let me grab this and then we're good. Right. So we get our bars. I think this is a one-time deal, right? I see it down here. We'll see if it shows up on the others. Pretty sure this is a one-time deal. We got 2 more characters to do to chill through. What was the story I brought? Oh, the story deals with like scientific writing. My recent exposure to Jiao, right? Jiao here is at university, and I was talking. It got me thinking once again about resources like primary literature. Yesterday, I was describing about primary literature. Churn asked about like, what do you mean by articles or papers, right? And I got to thinking about how journalism and product reporting has changed. I've been reading a lot of articles. I wanted to add something like do some cross evidence, like cross referencing, and then some like thread hunting and stuff in the last 3 days to add a new project that complements Wanikani, right? And I've realized that every time there's one thing that crops up almost consistently, like, yeah, I'm gonna say 7 out of 10 times, at least more than 50% of the time when I'm looking for information. And this is something that is completely avoided or nearly like emphasized when it comes to professional writing, when it comes to like science, discipline, primary literature. I'm curious if anyone is like saying right now, aha, I know exactly what you're thinking. It's at the top of the page. It's usually like right below the title most of the time. So one thing that I've come to understand or accept about journalism, especially even journalism that considers that their site is like a major resource for anything and everything involving language learning, or having a incredibly bold title like language resource learning.com or something like that, right? When I see those articles, I enjoy reading them, right? I'm so enjoying. I even think about the professional writing side of things. Like, okay, so this person has this investment. It's practically a company right now, right? And they advertise their own products, and then they talk about other products. So you encounter lots of questions like, oh, that's interesting. This company sells a product that competes with the product that they're reviewing in this article, right? Or something like that. Those are the upfront things. They're very tangible. That's the level of critical thinking that I think at least the vast majority of people would look into when they're studying and researching for investments and decision making and whatnot. Now, I've encountered one that I feel it used to be a given, like a common practice, possibly, but then again, I wasn't that attached to the internet. I'm like buying my time. I'm seeing if anyone is like suddenly jumping out. It's like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, when it comes to research, there is one thing that is absolutely very, very important, and that is the concept of time, right? Time is very important. When did you do this? At what point is this method done, right? Who has done this? Is this the current method or the previous method? If you're doing this, the results have to be dependent on in which time, manner, and way of which it is recorded and evaluated, so that one can understand perhaps this might be an outdated perspective, or this perspective has been updated. And at the beginning of each professional writing article, one does an introduction that updates the person who's going to read your methodologies, your results, and your conclusion of what knowledge you have going into it. That also includes you referencing your own work, your prior work in the introduction, and also the current date in which your report and or your experiment is being published. Now, on the newspaper side of thing, before the whole internet journalism thing, it's difficult to miss the time and context, right? The time frame of things being reported. Maybe not so much a summary, because it's not all things are ongoing developments, right? And here I am. I'm like, okay, I've already done this before. I'm gonna try to empathize with Zhao here. I didn't want to start over and it's like, oh, okay, so I didn't have the urge basically to start over. It's like, okay, I need to look for something for Chinese, right? Because I've already done it for Duolingo. Like, it started with Japanese and I looked around and I'm curating, cross-referencing. How do I start my first project? And then Duolingo, by extension, already had Chinese. So I didn't go through that process again of curating, cross-referencing, digging for developers, looking at community outreach and whatnot. I didn't have to start from zero, but I did in the last 3 or 4 days, because I'm looking for something that it wasn't necessarily from zero, but I had to do the thing again, cross-referencing, looking, digging, making sure all the timing and stuff line up. And yet I found from this practice that easily the top 20 or 30 hits fail to adequately and bibliographically contextualize the time of their articles. So what I mean by this is there's one that's at the top, and I'm not gonna say who it is. You can probably find this out everywhere. The title is incredibly bold. It's something, I'm not gonna use the exact words. You'll probably be able to figure out any article in this case. The article would be like, the opinions of a native speaker. Trust me, I tried all the products, inferring that they understand all the products that they're about to reveal. Here are my top things, and it's like incredibly detailed. Like, here's an app for this very specific purpose. Here's an app. That's well and good. That's so awesome that they gave that attention. That would definitely breathe reader, right? Like, it'll definitely have readers who can. It's very detailed, yet it's missing one of the most crucial things that makes that information relevant or not. They're insisting that the material is timeless, like time does not affect their material, because otherwise they would actually have a time marker on all their references. Why is this important? I still love the article. It was fantastic. It was incredibly informative, provided you're like me who have contextualized all these cross-references. As in, I know what version that they reviewed here, what version they reviewed here, what version did they review here, because they are comparing products at different states of their development. And you're probably gonna, some of you who know me from like Duolingo and whatnot probably are starting to think, you probably know where this is going to some extent, and that is, at some point, I love all the choices. I used a lot of that information to cross-reference to other things, but then they added a comment about Duolingo Chinese, and in their mission statement and stuff, or even in the description of this writer, they were saying, oh yeah, I'm here to help to present objective, unbiased, like as well balanced, and to their credit, it's exceptional. It's very like comprehensive and whatnot. That's great. I appreciate it. And they're trying. They said they try. I'm not sure they said they do, because they certainly do not. Near the end, there's like, oh, okay. Oh, by the way, here are other apps that you might like, and that use a gamified thing, and then they would add, you know, your classic like Bushu, or maybe like more industrial stuff like Babbel, and then suddenly they write Duolingo, right? Duolingo, and then they write in parentheses, not any other thing, like there's no other programs. They wrote Duolingo, and in parentheses they write only if you're not serious about language learning, in parentheses next to Duolingo. I can assure you, I know that there are plenty of products in their list that tagline, only if you're not serious with language learning, applies to a lot of them. But they specifically decided to write this excellent, it was an excellent, lots of information, and they ended their article with that. Now, that's fine. I'm okay with that, because it's gamification. It shows that they have a bias about having fun. When something is fun or gamified, it can't be taken seriously. That reveals to me that this person's writing and induction comes with a lot of preconceived notions, right? Old hat. I don't know when the article was written, so it really doesn't help, right? Like, I don't know how long ago this was, and my first thought is, well, I have Duolingo Chinese experience. I'm like, it would be interesting if I knew when they written this article and when did they evaluate Duolingo Chinese, because that's the only experience I have. I don't have experience with Pimsleur and all the other things they listed, right? I'm looking for experience. So this person's credibility is determined by the closest thing I have to reflect on their credibility. And when I clicked on their link, they say, oh yeah, check out my review of Duolingo Chinese. And this is why I say this, check out my review. I clicked on it, and it was, they evaluated Duolingo Chinese, and it still didn't have a date, by the way. The top of the article, it still doesn't have a date. It was before 2024, because how do I know? When I looked at the screenshots, it was the old system where, like, I don't even know what's going on. Like, so not only did they provide a review of Duolingo Chinese, in a way that I cannot comprehend their criticisms because I do not have experience with it. It is out of date. And what's even worse than that is those articles, they are dated from the last time someone edited those articles and or commented on those articles. So that article is listed as 2024 September 8th. That is after Duolingo changed. Duolingo Chinese changed. Like the whole facet of Duolingo Chinese course changed, of which I have experience with. And they link to their own article that predates the change. Not only is it terrible, it's misleading, it's unprofessional, and they have no accountability for when they actually write something. And that, in my opinion, is a red flag that I would say is a life lesson for any individual, or in my personal and professional opinion, my former professional opinion, one has to be very, very careful about. Because if I didn't have any experience at all, like if I didn't use Duolingo or Chinese, in any other way, my only ability is to cross-reference with another person. And I might miss details like that. Like, oh, hey, never mind. I can't really so wholeheartedly rely on this person's judgment because they're clearly biased. They have no accountability for the time frame, and they prefer to link to their old article in order to get more views. How does this relate to professional writing? A lot of times when you have introductions and review to your own research, it gathers more views, like more viewership. Like your article gets more exposure, the impact factor goes up. I would say a good summary of impact factor is like the YouTube algorithm. If you are trending, you have high impact factor. If you continue to trend, your impact factor goes up, right? For your articles. So a lot of times when people write a professional piece, they are held accountable through bibliography and like date tracking and whatnot, that you understand, the person who's reading understands the time frame of all of these things. Like, are you saying your review from 2020 pre-2023 is an adequate representation of your bias and strictly unprofessional comment you made at the end of what otherwise is an incredibly well-written paper? Well, unfortunately for me, it is, because it's my only source of converging evidence to associate and measure that person's quality of writing. And that is, it sounds harsh, but that's who I was, or who I am, or need to be when I'm in professional writing, right? Like, if that is an excellent way of losing all credibility in a professional sense. If you write a scientific article and you publish your research and you make a loose judgment like that, and it's irreparable to your reputation, like you will likely lose pretty much all your credibility. And that's the level of professionalism that you can gauge right now. I was using this story as a way to demonstrate that a lot of things I say deal with voluntary choices, right? Deal with hobby development and stuff. But back in the day when I was a working professional, all of this stuff is like the high pressure situation that you're constantly in. Like, these are the things that defines being a professional to me. So when a professional does research, right, when people say, oh, I do research and I study a lot and I learn a lot of things, it's like, that's great. Can you describe, explain, and contextualize and validate all the things you have learned? Because for me, if I'm going to take your advice on a professional standpoint, it's not the same as voluntary standpoint. Those mistakes and those looseness can end careers. Not only did you publish something that could inform hundreds and thousands of people and misguide them out of innocence, like, you know, like maybe it's an honest mistake or some choice of the matter. If you're someone who's an outlet for information, your professional integrity could be the consequence of informing an entire generation of people. And it's even stronger now because YouTube, Google is a thing. So if your article has a lot of hits, right? I would be super concerned if I said something that could be misleading. And when I published, like the few or couple times when I published some sort of research, right? I am constantly fearful of saying like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't say it this way because it can be misconstrued in this way. Did I make sure all my like citations and notations and notes and data gathering, are they accurate? Because the last thing I can think about is someone referencing my work and it becomes any form of the basis of their work in the future. That is a lifetime in a career that you can ruin and you wouldn't even know it. It sounds very scary. It's because it's a reflection of not everyone feels this way. I kind of feel that that's the one thing that instilled in me from my PhD days, where I earnestly have the worst possibly lots of coping mechanisms for the fear of being accountable for things I do professionally. So oftentimes I do not say things as a professional or of anything because I want people to make sure they know that you need a second opinion, you need a third opinion, maybe 1,000 opinions that's beyond mine, unless you're willing to hold on to all the liabilities of my limited experience, right? What game is this? This is a game, it's Neverwinter Online. It's a live service game. It's a freemium game, freemium live service game. It's been around for like it's going into its 12th year. Yes, 12th year. And it's based in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. It's an MMO that was originally structured like games that you might be familiar with, like World of Warcraft. And now it's a bit of a live service model kind of thing. So you play it, you know, I guess a more topical way of thinking about it is maybe like Genshin Impact, but it does have some multiplayer functionality. Like there's people you pair up with to run dungeons. I mean, a more really topical one would be like First Descendant or something by Nexon, where that the idea of a freemium game is you play it, you do dailies, you do weeklies, you might party up with people through a matchmaking system, accomplish it, and then every 3 or 4 months they would add new content. And in this case, the context is an MMO style, somewhat semi-combat oriented mechanic game. So not we're not going to go into like the type, but it's a combat MMO as opposed to First Descendant being a first-person shooter. It could be a third person. I don't actually remember about First Descendant. And it takes place in a Western MMO environment or a Western fantasy environment. So if one is interested in D&D, Tolkien fantasy, you know, elves, halflings, demons, more elves, orcs, that kind of thing. It's this type of game. Yeah. I usually play this kind of game as a way to rant about things, which is what I did for the last 30 minutes. I brainstorm about Japanese and Chinese while I'm playing this game and how it connects with language learning. It's a good way to chill. It's a chill thing. Earlier I mentioned emotionally and intellectually this is my Roblox. So if I were younger per se and I grew up with Roblox, I would use Roblox in a similar manner, where I get on Roblox, I do like some chill things, maybe one of my friends or two also hangs out in the game, we chat about other things, and then we kind of mosey around and use it as a platform of chatting. And that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm basically, right now, I'm in the 8th week. It takes 10 weeks to complete a new module, which is like an expansion, and every module is dropped every 3 to 4 months. The weekly I do in one day, so I do it on Mondays, which is the reset day, and today is one of the reset days. So I take a opportunity to develop or talk about random topics. It usually is about health, research, or something I've been practicing for a while, something I've been reading about for a while, because it's a good time to give my practice my opinions and pieces that I'll be using in the future. So call it a vibing moment. Fairly low effort, right? Fairly low effort practice. It's quite similar to opening up a book and writing something in it, like, oh hey, what does my journal look like today, what do I have to talk about today, that kind of thing. Or what was the last week of stuff I've been thinking about, that kind of thing. It's something to keep busy. If you like taking out dragons, doing dailies like fetch 10 seeds and, you know, take out 30 mobs and then collect the coins, and then here's a mount for you, congratulations, oh here's more gear, that kind of thing. This is it. And if you're partial to like dragons and whatnot, right, outside of the mechanics, this game is a combat MMO, so basically you, or I try to summarize, you have at least 3 skills, 3 to I don't know, like 5 to 6 things simultaneously juggling. Actions are real time, but then you have cooldowns. It's a cooldown based game, and you know, avoid getting hit, run dungeons and whatnot. Yeah, freemium. It's a freemium game. Since we met each other through language learning, consider it like a Duolingo. Yeah, you know, no risk. You can load this game up on console or PC and mess around, play a little bit, see what you think. And usually, since there's no investments, right, it keeps you occupied for an evening or something. That's great. Something to enjoy, something different to experience, right? I've played this game for over 11 years, so like across across the entire lifespan of this game. It has very low commitment, so I use it as a way, again, to do something while I'm chatting with myself or anyone in the future or posterity. I was just recently talking about how people do research, or I was implicating a thing that is not available in research articles or like reviews or journalism. Recently, when I was looking for a new project to start for Mandarin, and something that I found that was very common with so many of the sources that Google provides for me, right? When I search up, like, hey, what are the current trends in app design, in Mandarin learning apps and whatnot, it often comes up with this question that I'm left with nearly 90% of the time. I keep ending up with this question. And that question is, when was this done? Like, at the moment, can you please contextualize what your experience is and what is available right now and the state of things, right? Oftentimes there's these summary articles like, oh, these are the top 10 apps. And I was like, okay, that's great. These are the top 10 ads. What else do you expect when you say these are the top 10 ads? A link to something. And oftentimes, because of viewership and stuff, they link to their own articles. And usually they make a comment that would seemingly reflect that article. Well, when it comes to language learning apps, especially one that comes from a very credible source or it was championed as a very credible source, I found that of all the things to be out of date, it was a snide remark that's incredibly unprofessional and biased that was made about an experience that I coincidentally happened to have. And I didn't have problems with that at first until I realized that when I clicked on the link to their own article, it was over 2 years out of date. And that is what threw me into this like story that I came up that I have ready for actually tomorrow and today. And that's the importance of contextual timepieces. When you make, in my opinion, when one professionally tries to make commentary, I'm gonna call it commentary because I can't necessarily feel. Some part of me wants to look at every single one of those apps that were listed and see if they're current, as in like, did they evaluate the app current to the model that I'm going to use it, right? You could say, oh yeah, what is the best game? And then suddenly, you know, you read an article, it's like, man, all these journalists think Overwatch is the best game. And then meanwhile, you're like, okay, I guess I'll play Overwatch. And then you realize that half the articles is due to popularity and they were kept recent because the internet is designed in a way where you say how recent the article is based on the last interaction. So like you could have an article from 2020 be marked as an article from 2024. But you might be thinking, well, then that's just up to the user to know that. It's like, okay, yeah, sort of. If the date was actually even at the top of the page. Like what I mean is, the article I'm referring to didn't even have the date at the top. Like there was no date mentioned. Not only that, that person didn't even introduce themselves in how they tested these, reviewed these, nor did they say at the time of this review, this is a meta-analysis of all these articles ranging from a date of 221 to 223 or something. And note to keep in mind that half of the articles that they have are currently out of date and do not represent the current product that they're talking about. That is something that really got me churning my gears. My mind was on fire. Like I think about it and now I'm starting to think, ooh, when I start projects, if I ever start projects and provide commentary, you don't even need to check the date of where you're getting the information nowadays. Like what I mean is by default, you can The reason why you can get away with it, as in what I mean is, this person was not challenged for what they've written, largely because I think for most people it's not important. Like, you make a comment like, oh yeah, this product sucks, as of 2021, right? The moment you start making professional commentary that people are taking advice, the first thing I would think about is, wait, hold up. What if this changes? Because if people see this article, they have to know what time it was published. Because I could be held liable for all the things that is not true anymore if they encounter an article that deals with something else, right, at a different state. So, like, for example, if I were to tell you that this game is thriving, it's like, just kidding. This article is from 2013 when the game launched, right? When the game launched, it was a big deal. Neverwinter Online was for all intents and purposes, quite a big deal when it launched back in 2013. As of today, the things I say now are reflective of its state of the game now. It was not always a freemium game. In fact, it had a feature that was one of its selling points that don't even exist in the game today. So that's the kind of thing that I was kind of remiss a little bit. Like, I didn't realize how important I even got used to the idea, like, oh yeah, here's a summary article, and then I click on another article and I'm like, wait, what is the date of this stuff? Like, if you're a journalist and you're like a supposed expert on language learning, and you spent a lot of time and you said you tried all the apps, right? When did you try the apps? Because you already made a huge comment and a big deal that these are freemium apps, these are live service apps, these are subscription-based things. Even made a whole spiel about how long and like how much it costs to subscribe to this and if it's worth it in the long run. And yet, with all of that awareness, you wrote an entire article without considering dates. I think it is unprofessional, maybe not necessarily unfair, because the person reading has to do the due diligence, right? You yourself are responsible for your due diligence. I think there is a little bit of integrity that I find very concerning, that someone would feel comfortable that, hey, I'm a language learner expert, I don't understand context, as in I'm not worried that my article is out of date, because languages don't do that either. Like, that's one of the poetic ironies here. Like, someone who follows natural language don't typically take into account how time affects language. So even things that you say about a current language, like English, for example, come back 5 years and see if those things still stay true. Like, if you do, I don't know, a commentary or an essay on the usage of the word bro right now, I think come back a year and you probably have to retract and redact your current article about the usage of bro, right? There's a reason, in my opinion, that professional writing makes very, very clear that you have to understand the context of your research and the timing of your research. However, to me, it seems like journalistic writing doesn't require that anymore. And you might also be thinking, well, it could be really hard to maintain the dates and whatnot. No, I think it's actually easier now because of technology. And yet, it almost strikes me as someone who's intentionally ignoring timestamps. almost deceptively ignoring timestamps. And for myself, this is an example or a testament to doing research, like doing research with experience versus doing research because you know how to read. Like someone telling me it's the same equivalent as someone coming by and telling me that, oh yeah, I heard or I think or this thing is. I'm like, so where did you hear that? Well, for all intents and purposes, I don't know how relevant that is anymore, right? For example, is this game dying? For example, I'm like, well, when was the last time you played Neverwinter? For example, right? To illustrate, make it relevant to this game. And then they would say something like, oh, you know, I was playing it back in 2015. If anything, 2015 was less dying than, like, if I had to try to be empathetic to them, 2015 is less dying than now. If their metrics was how many people are playing the game, right? So, time matters, a lot. Perspective matters with time. Oh, it was fairly disappointing. I think it was fairly disappointing. So in the end, I relied on a different type of metric, and then like, I would say, it was a great exercise in understanding the shortcomings of journalism today, especially the type of journalism that has easily one of the most highest impact factors or influences, if you will. There are very low accountability for such things. It's important to me. At some point, someone's gonna probably ask me, why is that important? Like, since you already know all this stuff, right? You wouldn't make a decision like that. So to each their own. Maybe some people don't care about this stuff. It's like, yeah, that's fair enough. This is commentary for myself to keep myself honest, right? I think this stuff is important. So when I write something, I will do my utmost due diligence to make sure that whatever I'm saying is either current or sufficiently held liable, or held liable for doing my due diligence to keep track of what becomes out of date and what stays up to date. At least holding the responsibility of telling people like, hey, this is when I was this. And actually, I do that for almost all my video comments. When someone makes a comment on a specific video, I check when that video was posted, what day that video was posted. It's kind of one of the reasons why I date or count or put a counter on nearly all the things I publish. Not necessarily just the relying on YouTube's like automated process. Like, I could fetch those things like, hey, when did I post this video? However, there are also day counts everywhere that puts into scope and frame around how they're relevant, because it's important to know if you're basing all of your objectivity, quote unquote objectivity, and subjectivity as well, and all your decision making on things that are out of date or are no longer true. It would really, really suck if science was guilty of that due to the nature of interacting with media before. A great example would be MSG. At the time, there might have been suspicions, right? Now, the current state of things, and that illustrates how powerful echo chamber and especially during the time of the internet now, the echo chamber is even stronger now. So if you publish something and you do not take into account time and accountability, my only thought is, boy, if I say something and then someone discovers it later, is it still true? And my only thought is, man, you could be crucified for something that is no longer even true or up to date because you fail to disclose that this is the state of how you evaluated the thing. I do really appreciate those individuals who do make that, like, you know, say a gamer, a game streamer, right? Let's make it related to Twitch. I can't tell you how appreciative I am when someone says, okay, so at the time of this review, we are in the 1.4 build of the game. I am trying to cover the differences between 1.3 and version 1.4 of this game. So remember that this is an ongoing game. Most of these evaluations is as of this date on this version of the game, right? It might sound like, oh, that's not important. That's not very unprofessional, like that. People don't really need to know that. Sure, you could say that. And at the same time, professionally, that helps you not be liable for misinterpreting and misrepresenting a product. Especially when the only reason I knew about this, like for three of the biggest articles summarizing language learning apps, they reference themselves. So they link to all of their other articles. And they consciously decided, or it didn't come across their mind that they're writing an article in 2024 and they link an article from 2023 that people would care about that. And you know what? People don't care about it. Apparently, because in my opinion, I think it's egregious. It will give people the wrong idea. But since that article is still up and, you know, it's still the top hit on Google, and their company or whatever they're writing for is still like one of the major sources on opinions and whatnot, then I like to think that most people didn't find it important. Which is funny because the jab they made is a low-hanging fruit. It's a low-effort jab. And it's to the point where I guess they can't be sued for defamation and misrepresentation of product because technically what they said was true back in 2023. It was like that. But how much of that article is destroying a product unintentionally? You might be thinking, well, you know, they're making millions of dollars and all that stuff. So like, that's great. What if it's your product? Like, for example, you decided, I want to release this product, but I also want feedback and I'm gonna, you know, release a demo. And then this person was like, this person reviewed the game based on your demo, and they decide they're never gonna play your game again because the demo was shoddy. Now, because of that, from then on, they will constantly reference their own demo review as an example of why they didn't list your product as a competitor to other existing products. And of course, the sin is being my worst critic, I would say someone could argue, well, then don't release demos, or like don't release incomplete products. It's like, okay, that's fair. That is critiquing the developer. Nothing stops that writer from continuing to misrepresent unintentionally a game in a state that it no longer exists in, for example. or product it no longer exists in. That's professional integrity in two things. Yes, certainly the developer could release games only when they're ready to be released. That's a very common counter argument for having games that are outdated. When a game is released, it also gets updated as well. So when you have writers who do that, they don't even account for updates to the game, right? So it might not hurt you if, say, you only release a product when it's complete, but it does hurt the game when there's a very notable influence source of material that don't update their impressions, and they continue to write new articles using old data, right? It's crazy. I mean, if this doesn't sound ridiculous to you, then that's understandable, I suppose. I will chalk it up to me being too apprehensive about data reporting, right? It might not resonate with everyone because the stuff is like, nah, you know, it's not a big deal. Meanwhile, I sit here and take criticism from people who constantly say things that no longer exist. Actually, am I gonna get 500 for this? Come on, give me 500. Doesn't look like it. It's spinning because I don't think you can get more than one claim of this. What if I... Whoops. Very disappointing. Disappointing, but not expected. Not unexpected. I think due diligence in citing resources and citing sources and primary literature has fallen by the wayside for the most part. It's due to the lack of standardization, in my opinion. One of the consequences and contributing factors to this is the lack of standardization and professionalism, especially professional writing. So, why do I say this stuff then? To possibly inspire others when they make decisions, like very important decisions to them, important decisions that are important to them, to potentially keep in mind of these shortcomings, right? Or potential ways that you might be misled unintentionally. I rarely think that some gravity notion, I try not to be cynical about it, like, oh, that's just corporate greed or something, or these guys just want to publish like and hit top 10 things and whatnot. With all that said, at least in this case, it's about language learning, and they did do a whole spiel about, like, you know, if you're into language learning, I tried all of them. Here's my take so that you can make great decisions and informed decisions. I wish you the best. And like, I genuinely think that's coming from an unintentional standpoint, right? Dedicating a lot of the space to being a good, an excellent source, an accountable source for references. I'm not describing any particular one. I've discovered in my last 3 weeks that at least 60% of them have some sort of citation concerns. At least 60% of them. I think the information is still consistent enough that you'll likely end up getting a similar impression with or without the impressions that considering the date of it. My potential overreaction to a very specific one is largely because I have a lot of personal detail or anecdotal detail about how they described the product when it was completely unfounded. Like comparing a recent product that they tested in like at the end of 2024 to a product they tested over 2 years ago, and then using it as a basis to do a meta-analysis on without considering that this is a meta-analysis is it invalidates nearly the entire article. Taking like professional criticism or being stringent, your paper, if you were to submit this as like a professional thing, would be retracted immediately, and probably a big hit to one's own credibility. Retracting a professionally published thing is incredibly damaging, especially when how long that paper's been out. So if you publish an article, how long that article's been out will influence and have multiplicative effects if it has a high impact factor, right? That means lots of people have used whatever you published as a way to inform everything that comes after. So technically, if that was a professional paper, you would be held liable for spreading disinformation, and that could lead to damages, right? Like someone based like a lot of their ongoing research on your research, knowing that it's reliable and all that, and they went down the wrong poop chute. And the downside of that is if it's not commercial, it doesn't, it's on you most of the time. Like what I mean is it's on the person who decided to trust the other person who didn't held accountable for their own research. Sounds like a nightmare scenario, but a couple of things have happened regularly. This stuff happens more often than I would like to admit, even at a professional way, and that's more there. That's human error more than incompetence or inexperience. Oftentimes it's like, oh well, we could have written it better per se or something like that. Crazy, I tell you. Wild. Start to wonder if anyone has done, if there's a YouTube channel out there who does proofread online resources. I imagine it wouldn't be too popular. What I mean is popular among other journalists, like other people, like knowing that there's a person out there that has taken it upon themselves to vet online resources and whatnot. In a way, a lot of content creators kind of serve as that. However, there isn't like a standardization, right? There's no enforcement or a quality control guy around. Like imagine if there was a quality control for people who do live streams. Yikes. There is a high chance I would have to like change standardizations and whatnot of my own in order to adhere to something. But here, professional writing is it's a different world we live in when it comes to getting information. I don't want to say it's because one is of lower quality or higher quality. I often think it's due to inexperience. And personally, the current generation did not grow up with the necessity to vet things on their own, largely due to the trust in automated processes. So when you do a Google search, who's liable for the credibility of the information that could inform someone that they should go to a doctor when your hand starts swelling up or something like that. I'm making it about health because that's kind of where I'm worried about. Oh, we're talking about language learning, so maybe that can get a pass, right? I make the consensus like most people. If the article helps you or encourages you to learn, then you're still learning, I guess. Provided that person isn't so ticked off that their expectations didn't meet reality when they found out that the article that they use was out of date, right? That's perfectly fine, I suppose. To some people, language learning is practically their life's blood, so there are going to be cases that's going to happen. However, maybe not this. Now my thought goes to fitness advice, nutritional advice online. Perhaps my naivety is suggesting that since fitness and health and like psychological mental health and stuff is very important, perhaps that whatever I'm observing when it comes to language learning doesn't necessarily impact things like that as much, you know, because sometimes importance weighs in people's due diligence. I'm trying not to be cynical about this. I can kind of imagine the theoretical cynic would say like, nah, it's quote unquote just as bad or something like that. I already have examples in my head of outdated dietary and fitness constraints and whatnot, because that's due to the reinforcement of conventional knowledge, right? Conventional knowledge which predicates on out-of-date information. I think the most recent one that I was talking about, I was trying to be a little bit more respectful in that case because it's still ongoing. It's the idea of what is actually doing the damage to your eyes when you're watching or reading or using your eyes, like for monitors and stuff. Like, what is the element that is damaging your eyes? Like that type of thing. And conventional knowledge has a lot of ongoing theories. One is a very trending theory, right? Blue light and all that stuff. However, it's not without its very resilient echo chambers, because lately there's been quite a lot of development in this area. It's an active place of development, largely due to advertisements and businesses capitalizing on the initial financial potential profiting that can happen with that. Right. And a lot of that information is outdated. Here's another one, right? I think hats off to pretty much your viral favorite influencers who are well, they're not influencers, they're actually trained professionals. The people who are willing to stake their professional careers on their credibility. But the idea of organic foods, right? I'm not an expert in that, so my only thought is, as a consumer of this type of information, right? Someone who consumes the information, as in I'm no different than someone else who's doing research on their own opinions or subjective takes on organic foods. Dating and writing and stuff, it's a real big thing. Like, how current, which one is the current up-to-date synthesis and meta-analyses of the things. Now, there is a silver lining to this. Sometimes there are really great, awesome timeless research that stand the test of time and gets challenged over and over again, and it's vigorously reaffirmed, for sure. You have to understand that it still encompasses that. Basically, you have to know that theorem and stuff have to be challenged again and again to see if it's still accurate. So it still, in my opinion, goes back to knowing if your predilections are still current. Definitely something worth considering, right? I think usually I make that MSG remark most of the time, because while food arguably tastes better or not better or whatever is up to subjective consequences and stuff, there's a difference between spreading misinformation because of your personal taste and principles versus acknowledging that there's no substantial evidence for something and still say subjectively, I think foods with these don't like taste better and whatnot, because that's still accurate. What was another one? Oh yeah. One that I would say in the fitness thing, is the misconception between how one builds hypertrophy and endurance, like the interaction between hypertrophy and endurance. That's a wild one. A discussion for another day, possibly. I don't think I've had many people who are interested in their own personal interactions and understanding of the concept behind like the difference between mass, the relationship between muscular strength and mass, and then how does that deal with endurance training and progressive overload, right? And how muscular adaptation works due to an overload situation, right? It's a compensatory response of growing strength due to an overload process. Endurance is another faculty of overload, but it's not quite equivalent and generalized to strength, per se. It's a really interesting topic. It's kind of one of my hobbies. I don't know how I can make it related to video games, and didn't quite find a clever way to involve fitness and health with video games and language learning yet. Or cooking, for that matter. What a time we live in for information. What a time. You start to wonder, is there too much information? That's a rhetoric. I'm sure we'll have tons of opportunities to engage in that particular discussion. Is there too much information? And then there's the idea of like the quality of information, the vetting of information. I have to remind myself how I came about this topic. And it's largely going to be about tomorrow's topic. Like, how did I come to this decision, right? Decision making is often predicated on a bit of your own perceptions of your value. So I have to be able to express that in a way that's relatable to others so that I can be held accountable for what I'm saying. And then where and how I acquired such information or sharing of such information. Oh, wait. Oh, hijinks is already done on this guy. Nice. Where's the curator at all? So this guy's already done because went a different route. Okay. All right. So there's our third character. Is this gonna be an infinite loop of death? Oh no, it didn't. It just did nothing. That's all. Right? Yep. 0 bars. Kind of a cheeky, maybe overlooked. I don't think it's cheeky per se, like intentionally, but I think it's an overlooked error in this module where they don't have the replacements like this. They didn't replace these icons because or make note that these are one-time redemptions between characters. So you don't, hopefully no one gets upset, like there's no appreciable upsetness regarding that. Where someone's like, oh yeah, you know, I can run multiple characters through this and I get this stuff. I know, you only get it once. At least nowhere that I can see that defines it clearly. Yeah, no. And I don't even know what the 8th... It's probably a boon point. It's probably a boon point. Alright. Now it's the time. We're gonna squeeze in like maybe 1 or 2 dungeon runs. This is what I do typically. This is my typical routine. I log in. I do my login stuff. Login claims. I sit here. I look at PE chat to see if there are any brave souls. Usually I queue for RTQ and RDQ strictly to fill the role bonus. And then if by coincidence someone's looking for someone, I like to come group. We'll give it until 9:45 local time. The timer's up here. Meanwhile, light snack. Okay. It looks like we'll do some healing. Random queue. Let's see what we get. Oh. We're missing a tank. Okay. Yeah, we'll just let it go. Bye. Give it 10 queues up. All right. Let's see what we haven't stored. My guess, Malabog's Castle. Oh, I haven't gotten Temple of the Spider in a while. Oh no. No Karin docks. No Karin decks. I would settle for a Grey Wolf's Den or a Never. Sure. Or Fanbreaker, I suppose. Ideally, Valindra or Lair of Lasma. Ideally. This is from like a time perspective. I can like get back into PE quickly and see if anyone wants to do a Sanctum or something. I think there's gonna be a lockbox drop. A new lockbox. Before, maybe it might drop on week 10. We could open some lockboxes if that happens. It might be the week after. I don't know. Usually there are 2 lockboxes, but it seems like the next lockbox has an extended rotation. Oh, it's Fanbreaker, okay. 3 wizards. Hit the first thing they see. Alright. We just chill. The tank's missing, of course. I think more maybe this is a coincidence, obviously. But it might not be a coincidence. When it comes to randomly queuing, right, through the queue system, so this would most definitely imply the vast majority of the vast majority of the groups usually have like some sort of inexperience or something, or maybe like a reason to self-select themselves into a random queue situation, right? So with that all kept in mind, of all the roles that are last to load in and also like be inactive, the tank role is actually the longest. Now, maybe there's a programming explainer for this, you know? Maybe the tank tends to be the last person to queue in, and perhaps there's a weird reason, like the servers prioritize whoever queues in the order they accepted, or maybe there's an explainer to this, you know, a technical explainer to this. However, more often than not, the character that DCs and or AFKs or loads in last is the tank. Like statistically, probably for me anecdotally, statistically more frequently than the other roles. And this is even taking into consideration there are 3 pain givers. Obviously, I have very little data on healing, because largely healing is the last role. It's the most consistent role bonus. Although tanks is rivaling that at this point. And if you're thinking, well, okay, so it's a coincidence, right? No, then the healer is the most frequent to DC and not be present at the beginning of a dungeon, which happens to be the other role that is frequently last queued. Oh no. It's a funny observation with obviously not enough data to actually know if it has anything to do with maybe the queuing system or the type of person, the type of people, the hardware, frequency, you know. Yep, that's what happens when you use forehead strats. They just stand over there, and I think I'm just gonna chill here. It's fine. He'll take care of it until that guy jumps up again, and then it's gonna land on me, probably. Oh no, it didn't. Interesting. Oh, it flipped back up from the poison things. Okay, that's fine. I don't think that void space is intentional, obviously, but echo chamber. People do it. People do it. It works. Is the tank gonna join them? Okay, that's fine. I'm getting off my back. I want the guy to land in the field, like here. Because it's kind of annoying when they just plop off the cliff every once in a while because of clipping. Like, the platforming clipping. Every once in a while. Or standing over there and then getting knocked off because of, forking the reticle. See? That guy lost track of the boss, thought the boss is dead, and then off the cliff they go because they need to enter. They could have just stand in that spot, but that's okay. Very uneventful, largely because you see this behavior all the time when you're doing random solos. Now we wait. Okay. You know what they say about perception and awareness. All right. I still have my hopes held out for the Moonlighter Dread Sanctum or Imperial Citadel group that's like, you know what? It's like in the nosebleed section. Let's see if we can find 5 people who would want to do a dungeon run of that nature. Unlikely. That would be fun if it did happen. Okay. Functional jumping. One of the few times you'll catch me jumping. Although I have to admit, there's a lot of jumping in Sanctum, though. Okay. This is where you play the roulette, and not in this boss, but in the next boss. Right about this time is where you gauge: are they gonna hit the last boss, which is coming up? Not this one, but hit the boss so hard that everyone takes it down, and then you want to take a gamble at who is gonna be the one that decides to scroll, right? In order to like complete the dungeon. Right. It's I would say the statistics when it comes to solo queuing using the matchmaking system, it's like a 70% chance that the pain givers are gonna slap the final boss so hard that everyone dies. And then it's a pain giver that actually does the scrolling. So we'll see if the statistic holds up. It's more likely everyone's gonna get downed, and I don't have to do anything. I mean, even if I died, they would clear the boss, the healer, or the tank, whichever role it is. It's typically happens most of the time. How often do the DPS have so much damage that they one cycle kill the boss before the boss is able to do that attack? It happens a couple times actually. For a random queue. We're not talking about like a constructed queue or a LFG group. We're talking about these type of group, like random queue. The boss got gibbed before it happened a couple, like 1 or 2 times out of like hundreds of runs, of course, but it's possible. And the curve could be so high eventually, it might become more and more consistent. To gib the boss before it like takes you down involves coordination to some extent. So even if your gear goes really high, it's still not sufficient to reliably gib the boss before the thing. Usually it's a coincidence that everyone's rotation lined up. So like, for example, if all 3 of these wizards just happen to have the same rotation, and they rotate it into the boss's phasing when the boss does that attack, then the boss could be gibbed. That's a lot of ifs, right? Tons of ifs, and usually that doesn't happen in random queues, not LFG nor like alliance or pre-made groups. So let's find out. Looking at the distribution, not a chance in the world. Because there's basically one person who knows. And if that person... Actually, there's a chance this might be the other 30%. Only one person has to stop attacking. Which is this guy. Because they make up a large majority of the DPS. So if they don't DPS, then there'll be enough time for the pillars to be spawned. So let's find out. You know, make it a little tiny game, if you will. This is like the extra fun entertainment game. Taking bets with myself. After many years of observing behavior in this game. This particular observation hasn't really changed too much. Not too significantly. So nearly insured. No, come on. Nearly insured as long as what's his name? Oh. Nice. Safety is ensured if Momanga does not attack. If Momanga stands there, then we're good. If they don't, then one of them is gonna scroll. Let's find out. Don't kill her too fast. That's being said by the tank. So the tank, usually the support player is the one. The other support player says something. It looks like, nope, Momo is attacking. Yep, and Momo used the artifact. So there's still a chance, 30% chance that, oh no, we're done. I didn't realize you could freeze her. No. Okay, Momo is not attacking anymore. It's fine. Momo is hopping around. There it is. All right. Yeah, you could see that the player stopped right before. So yeah, not bad. This is bad. I think I'm gonna get killed here because of line sight. No, okay, that's fine. Yep, there you go. The dude knew when to stop, and that's about it. Neat. Someone in there? No. That's as exciting as it gets, folks. Don't know what to tell you. And then the tank said, "Good job. Thank you." Can you get a little bit more than that? Yes. Thank you. Okay. All right. So next one. We'll give it till 10:05. And then we'll queue in an RTQ. We don't. And then call it a day. No. In all of that time, only one person spoke, so there is a DPS that's looking for Dread Sanctum. I don't see a healer nor a tank at the moment. Alright. Looks like we're queuing up as a tank. It's probably the same group. There's one RTQ group that was looking for a tank. And very low activity, right? Late in the day. Let's see if we can find that person in this queue group. A cool name though. Katsumi. Do I know an anime character named Katsumi? Hmm. Yeah, it didn't take very long today. We had our activities available to us. Ugh. The groan. Oh no. Maybe it's a different group. Oh no. It is the same group. There's Katsumi. If I had to guess, Rogue? No, it's a wizard. Interesting. Yeah, they were looking for a tank. I'm like, they're probably already queued since no one responded. Or like, there's not a lot of activity, so not a high chance that someone responded. I just queued into them. Only people asking. Let's take an appreciation for this picture. Classical city overlooking the ocean. No, I didn't clearly read what Valentine said earlier about a whole new world of viewing the world from entirely different cultures, so I might be inclined to call that metal as heck. Indeed. Owie. Don't mind those visual. don't mind those well documented visual oddities with the healer mob. Huh. I saw a proc that I haven't seen in a while. Something with Death Strike in the name. Should I do it? I most certainly am. I don't know why I said am. I most certainly would. Nah, they're fine. Wait. Did someone actually go up here? Oh. That's intriguing. Okay. Oh, I see someone releasing lanterns. Cute. Very cute. Okay. Just gonna stand over here. Ganbatte. Oh, you little butthead. Ouchie. And that guy generates zero threat. Oink. Huh. I don't want. I wonder which artifact makes that. Image or like that visual effect. That kind of reminds me of the Tiamat thing. Oh, that's a bad one. That's a bad separator. Looking for 3 DPS advance. Dread Sanctum final boss. Dang. Shame I can't ping give in this guy. They lost all their pain givers. Interesting. I wonder why that's the case. Hooray! Alright. Okay. Alright. Alright, I'll give it one more opportunity. Let's wait till 10:23? 10:23 and we'll head off. Looking for 2 DPS. Oh. That's fine. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good place to stop. I don't have a DPS equipped. Do not get one shot by demo. That's kind of required for the final boss. Alright. Alright, folks. It was a pleasure, as always. Got a little bit more feisty today. You know, pay attention. Usually comments about doing research, right? There are protocols in place and behavioral practices, very normalized behavioral practices and attention to detail when it comes to doing research. And time is a very prominent aspect of that, especially nowadays when you're evaluating. Am I here for the end of the stream for the first time? Oh yeah, you are if you're still here, Valentine. Yeah, today's a shorter day. Tomorrow, I'll be showcasing my companion for Wanikani. And we'll revisit a lot of the topics that are shown. Tomorrow will be also a truncated day. No, you know what? We're going to slide in Wanikani in front and then afterwards. Yeah, it's very important. I'm not sure how often people take into account time anymore, considering that a lot of times when I get asked for questions or they tell me something, my first response is, so when did you play? When did you read this? When was the thing published? Right? I'm excited to see what it is. I don't have any premature guesses. Oh, really? It was mentioned a couple of times, and that's what made me change my as a little tease for tomorrow. Someone told me this a long time ago. Actually, I thought about it for 4 months ago, and before that, Wanikani was 2 months ago. Like 2 months before that, it was 6 months ago. Someone mentioned that, and to this day, when I started Wanikani, that discussion came back double. So now, instead of evaluating one product that does that, we'll try to evaluate two products, right? And evaluate in the sense of, let's see how it's done. And these are, I think, Wanikani and this other thing will probably be the thing that I'm going to hold on to for the rest of the project. And then the rest is going to be immersion stuff. So LLMs and video games. I think all the things I was doing when I was when I was like researching and stuff, like there's a hole. Like there's a specific hole in both Chinese and Japanese language learning that I needed to fill. So it is very related and it will be interesting. Yep. Anyways, or at least it'll be interesting to see what happens. So for now, yeah, the main message today, for the most part, that links all the core of my topic that I'm going to talk about tomorrow, is evaluating things and making decision making, and largely finding connections and creating converging evidence on developers' confidence. Right? Neverwinter is very relevant to that. A developer's confidence is how you see a project into the future. Predicating on expectations and empty promises and or echo chamber of stuff that's outdated, that factors into whether you want to stick with the product or not. Like, what do I have to lose if Neverwinter closes down tomorrow? That how you feel and your emotional attachments to it comes with expectations and understanding of perception of time and investment and the developers, right? So more on that tomorrow. For now, this is the end of week 8. We have 2 more weeks left. I'll more aggressively bring a topic to talk about for the next 2, largely to fill in the meditative way this game becomes. Today is business as usual. I don't think there are any. Usually, there are no surprises. There hasn't been a surprise. The developers do not necessarily have a track record to uh increase the load to the end of the week. Usually, they front load the first 4 weeks, and then if something trickles down, it is usually dealing with currency and whatnot. So 5, as usual, business as usual, not worse, not more, consistent. I eat it, and I'll eat it again, that kind of thing, right? Like, it's rice, it's rice. It goes with all the other things that I eat, vegetables, dishes. That's like the language learning and all that right now, right? All right, folks. Hopefully everyone is having their wonderful start. This is technically the end of the official 7 days, the week of the first New Year's. And I hope everyone they're acclimated back into their routines for those who are returning after the New Year's. Classes, I think I heard for the most part, all the people that I know have either started their classes again or are already done prepping to start their new classes. And it's a bright world. Keep cozy if you're in a cold place. There's a winter storm right now here, so it's like really cold and it snowed. Bundle up, stay safe, stay healthy, guys. Make wonderful, educated decisions. Don't try not to be afraid of starting new things. I think having at least a few things you start here and there for a month, that's wonderful to desensitize or normalize things that you would consider to look for. Experiencing temporary things are another facet of life, right? There are permanent things and then temporary things. Wishing everything is permanent, it can be it can be achievable. However, when other things suddenly become temporary, it can be very tough. So go out there, try new things on the bedrock of your permanent things. And I'll catch you guys on the next one, right? Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye now.